For more than 3,000 years, one civilization absolutely dominated the ancient world. They left behind monuments so massive, so grand, that even today, we're still trying to figure them out. Today, we are unlocking the secrets of their pyramids, their pharaohs, and their incredible, eternal legacy. Let's dive into ancient Egypt. Right in the heart of northeastern Africa, for over 3 millennia, this civilization didn't just survive, it thrived. It innovated. It built for eternity. Now, to put that into perspective for you, that's a longer, continuous history than the entire Roman Empire and all of modern history combined. So, where do you even begin a story that spans 3,000 years? Well, it all starts with a river. To really understand Egypt, you have to understand its lifeline, the source of absolutely everything, the Nile. The Egyptians called the Nile the gift of the gods, and believe me, that was not just some poetic phrase. Think about it. While other civilizations were dealing with totally unpredictable floods and droughts, the Nile's annual flood was incredibly reliable. Every single year, it would deposit this layer of rich, black silt that literally turned the desert into a fertile paradise. This one rhythm of nature was the foundation for their stability, their wealth, their entire way of looking at the world. And this timeline really gives you a sense of that deep, deep history. You've got thousands of years of small settlements just chugging along, and then, bam, around 3100 BCE, a huge moment arrives. A ruler named Narmer conquers and unites the two separate lands of Upper and Lower Egypt. He becomes the very first pharaoh and kicks off the period we now call the Old Kingdom. All that stability from the Nile, well, it allowed them to think bigger, way bigger. The Old Kingdom became the age of monumental construction, an era that was totally defined by the powerful connection between their rulers, their gods, and of course, the afterlife. To get the pyramids, you have to get the pharaoh. See, this wasn't just a king, this was a living god on earth. And what does a god need? A home for eternity. And that's exactly what the pyramids were. They weren't just tombs, they were eternal palaces, designed as a launchpad for the pharaoh's soul into the next world. Their belief system was just incredibly rich. I mean, they had a whole pantheon of gods who were in charge of every single aspect of life. You had Ra, the sun god and creator of everything, Osiris, the lord of the underworld, his wife Isis, the goddess of magic, and Anubis, the guide who looked after souls. For the Egyptians, religion wasn't something you did on the weekend. It was life. And that brings us to the famous practice of mummification. So why go to all that trouble? Well, it's because they believed the soul had to recognize and reunite with its body to live on in the afterlife, in this paradise ruled by Osiris. It was basically a spiritual necessity, a very practical step to ensure you got your happily ever after. Which, of course, leads us to the great question that still gets us today. How in the world, without any modern machinery, did they build these colossal, perfectly aligned structures? We've got theories, about massive ramps and clever engineering, but the complete truth? It's still one of history's greatest architectural mysteries. Okay, so after the age of the Great Pyramids, Egypt entered a totally new phase. This wasn't just about building for the afterlife anymore, no. This was about building an empire right here on Earth. This was their golden age, the New Kingdom. During this period, Egypt became a true superpower. You had warrior pharaohs like Thutmose III and Ramses II leading these powerful armies, pushing their borders way out into modern-day Syria. Gold just poured in from conquered lands, which funded these immense temples and monuments. It truly was Egypt's golden age. This era also gave us some of history's most fascinating and unique rulers. On one hand, you have Hatshepsut, a powerful female pharaoh who was all about peace and prosperous trade. And then on the other hand, you have Akhenaten, the heretic king, who tried to erase thousands of years of tradition by forcing everyone to worship a single god, the Aten. It was such a radical move, and it threw the whole empire into turmoil. And of course, you can't talk about the New Kingdom without mentioning King Tut. Now, honestly, he was a pretty minor pharaoh in his own time. But his fame today comes from one incredible fact. His tomb, discovered in 1922, was almost completely intact. After centuries of tomb robbing, this discovery gave us an unprecedented, glittering window into the unbelievable wealth and world of the pharaohs. But you know how it goes. No golden age lasts forever. After centuries of power, a mix of internal conflicts and the rise of new, hungry empires on the horizon, well, it marked the beginning of the end for this amazing civilization. And the decline was a long one, really marked by one conquest after another. The weakened empire just couldn't defend its borders anymore. First, it fell to the Assyrians, then the Persians. Then, in 332 BCE, Alexander the Great arrived. And finally, the rising power of Rome appeared on the horizon, setting the stage for the final act of this very long play. And at the absolute center of that final act was this woman, Cleopatra VII. She was the last pharaoh, a brilliant and cunning ruler who used her political genius to try and navigate the treacherous relationship with Rome, to try and save what was left of Egypt's independence. With Cleopatra's death in 30 BCE, a staggering 3,000 years of continuous, independent pharaonic rule came to a final, definitive end. 3,000 years. Just let that number sink in for a moment. An almost unbroken line of culture and power. Gone. But did it really end? Or did it just transform? The pharaohs were gone for sure, but their legacy was so powerful that it's still with us today, often in ways we don't even realize. I mean, their legacy of innovation is just mind-blowing. They developed hieroglyphs, one of the world's very first writing systems. They created a 365-day solar calendar that was so accurate, it's the direct ancestor of the one we use today. And get this, their medical texts show that doctors were performing complex eye and even brain surgeries more than 4,000 years ago. Incredible. And this commitment to knowledge, it all culminated in the Great Library of Alexandria. Now, even though it was built a bit later, it perfectly embodied the Egyptian respect for learning. It became the intellectual center of the ancient world, housing a collection of scrolls that was just unrivaled for centuries. And their values still echo in some pretty surprising ways. Here's a fun one for you. Cats? They were considered sacred protectors of the home, associated with the goddess Bastet. They were so revered that killing one, even by accident, was a crime punishable by death. And that really brings us to the main takeaway here. The story of ancient Egypt teaches us that a civilization's greatness isn't just measured in years or dynasties. It's measured in its ideas and its creations. They built for eternity, not just with stone, but with knowledge. And in that sense, as this quote suggests, they never really left us at all.